Have you ever looked at a skyscraper and thought it kind of looks like a machine? Or, and stick with me here, what if entire cities could just get up and walk? Well, today, we're diving into the absolutely wild journey from the radical architectural dreams of the 1960s all the way to the sleek, high-tech buildings that define our skylines.
This is the exact question that architects and thinkers were obsessed with back in the mid-20th century. And it drove some of the most imaginative and, let's be honest, kind of crazy architectural ideas ever put on paper. So let's see where that big question led them.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with the problem they were trying to fix, then check out the wild, visionary solutions they came up with. From there, we'll see how those theories sparked the high-tech revolution, get to know the masters who built its most famous icons, and then wrap it all up with the style's lasting legacy. So first things first, why did they feel the need for such a radical change in the first place? Well, the answer was all around them, in the failings of the modern post-war city. See, as cities just kept sprawling outwards, they became super inefficient. They ate up huge amounts of land and energy. In some cases, over 60% of the land was just for cars. But it wasn't just about waste. This kind of design actually made people feel more isolated and cut them off from the natural world. This was the big problem that a new generation of architects was desperate to solve. And believe me, their solutions were anything but boring. This brings us to three major visionary movements, and each one had its own unique, almost utopian idea for what the city of the future could be. First up, we have Paulo Soleri's Arcology, a mashup of architecture and ecology. Just imagine these massive, three-dimensional cities, super dense and totally self-sufficient. The whole point was radical conservation. No cars. You build up, not out, to leave nature alone. And get this, a prototype called Arcosanti is actually still under construction out in the Arizona desert. Then you've got the British group Archigram. These guys were completely obsessed with technology, with mobility, with stuff. They didn't really build things, they dreamed them up. I mean, we're talking about concepts like the walking city, giant robotic structures that could roam the planet, or the plug-in city, a megastructure where you could just slot your house in and out like a drawer. Pure science fiction, but man, was it influential. Meanwhile, over in post-war Japan, the Metabolist movement was born. Their big idea? Cities should act like living organisms, able to grow and change over time. They imagined these huge megastructures with smaller, prefabricated capsule homes that you could plug in and then replace every few decades. The city could literally adapt and evolve.
So, let's just quickly put these side by side. You've got Arcology, which is all about ecology and self-sufficiency. Then there's Archigram, championing technology and constant change. And finally, Metabolism, focusing on this idea of organic, biological growth. Three totally different visions for the future, all born from the same frustration with the cities they lived in.
Now, while these incredible utopias never really got built, their obsession with technology, with modular parts, and with showing off a building structure, well, that directly inspired a real architectural style that absolutely did get built: high-tech. It's sometimes called structural expressionism, and it popped up in the 1970s, kind of in this interesting space between modernism and postmodernism. And its defining feature was simple: celebrate how a building is made by putting all the inner workings right out there on display. So how do you spot a high-tech building in the wild? Well, look for the skeleton on the outside, that exposed steel frame. See the building's guts, all the pipes, ducts, and elevators worn proudly on the facade. You'll notice tons of steel and glass, and inside, the spaces are usually wide open and super flexible. It's a very honest, nuts and bolts kind of look. The legendary architect Le Corbusier famously said, "A house is a machine for living in." Well, high-tech architects basically took that idea and ran with it. Their buildings don't just function like machines, they really truly look like them. Okay, enough with the theory. Let's get to the good stuff and look at some of the most iconic, real-world examples and the brilliant architects who brought this machine aesthetic to life. And you really can't talk about high-tech without starting here, the Pompidou Center in Paris, by Richard Rogers and Renzo Piano. When this thing opened in 1977, it was a total shock to the system. It was a building that literally turned itself inside out. And this wasn't just some crazy design choice for the sake of it. There was a brilliant reason. By moving the entire steel skeleton, the escalators, the plumbing, all the air ducts to the outside, they won the ultimate prize on the inside. Huge, open-plan spaces with no columns. For a modern art museum, this was a game changer. It meant you could set up an exhibition any way you wanted.
And all that color you see on the outside, it's not random at all. It's actually a code that helps you read the building. Blue is for air conditioning. Green is for water pipes. Yellow is for all the electrical systems. And red is for things that move people, like elevators and escalators. The building is basically a giant, color-coded diagram of itself. Now, the architect James Stirling took a slightly different path. At the Neustadtgalerie in Germany, he created this amazing conversation between old and new. He used traditional materials like travertine and sandstone right next to these brightly colored industrial steel parts, like the iconic pink and blue handrails that guide you along a public path that actually cuts right through the museum. It's a really cool mashup. Okay, let's jump forward in time to see how these ideas evolved. This is the Shard in London, another masterpiece from Renzo Piano. The 72-story skyscraper is, for all intents and purposes, a vertical city, and you can definitely feel the echoes of those early architectology ideas here.
And what's so smart about it is how its shape perfectly matches what's inside. The wide base is perfect for big office floors. As the tower gets slimmer, it houses a hotel and restaurants, then exclusive apartments near the top. And finally, it all tapers to a point with a public viewing gallery. The pyramid shape isn't just for looks, it's a direct result of all those different uses stacked on top of each other.
So, let's take a step back and connect all the dots. We've gone from these really out there theoretical dreams all the way to real-world concrete, steel, and glass. And right here, you can really see it all come together. There's a clear line you can draw from the purely conceptual work of people like Salery and the Archigram Group to the built realities created by architects like Stirling, Rogers, and Piano. They took those core obsessions with technology and structure and actually turned them into iconic, world-famous buildings. You know, when you think about it, the journey from proposing cities that can walk to designing buildings that wear their skeletons on the outside, it's a really powerful reminder. It shows us that even the wildest, most out-there ideas can eventually filter down and fundamentally change the world we actually live in every single day.
And that really leaves us with a final question. As our cities face totally new challenges, like climate change and massive population growth, which of these visionary ideas will architects start to look at again? Will it be the ecological focus of arcology, the adaptability of Archigram, or that deep integration of technology we see in high-tech? It's definitely something to think about.